What's going on, everyone? This is my post-debate analysis. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. The debate ended a few hours ago before I head off to bed. Wanted to throw put some of my thoughts out there. Made a little bullet point list of things I wanted to touch. Wrote it while the debate was going on. First and foremost, let us give grace to our Lord and Savior Harambe. He got us through this turbulent night as the first debate went on between two of the most disliked and polarizing presidential candidates, certainly in recent American history. So I see a lot of people in the Trump camp complaining about Lester, saying he was ridiculously slanted against Trump and totally in the Clinton camp. Well, no shit. I mean, we knew that going ahead of time, ahead of the debate. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been definitely more blatantly on the Clinton side. All things considered, I'd say it was acceptable. I'm not that bothered by it. It was very predictable that he would have hit Trump a lot harder than he hit Clinton. Definitely trying to make Trump trip up on his words, putting Trump more in the defensive. Anyone could have seen that coming. No reason to get lost in the weeds over that. Now, on the some of the first part of the debate over economics. So, Clinton's attempt to coin the phrase "Trump trickle down." It's an effective tactic for consolidating her support on the left. Not very good for independents. I do find it interesting that in this debate, she is trying. Her first attempt is to try to solidify her support on the left. When at this late into the campaign, this close to the election, that should already be a done deal. She shouldn't be trying to hit hard on the people. On the people who are already in her political camp. That tells you a lot. I mentioned it before in another video that Clinton has a low amount of hard support. There are not many people excited for Hillary Clinton. And she started off with a lot of soft support. A lot of people, didn't like Trump, not very big on Clinton, not that informed on the issues, but Trump's he's a bigot and a racist, and so I guess I'll stick with Clinton. That is the average Clinton voter. Trump is worse. Trump, on the other hand, his circumstances were the opposite. He has a lot of hard support. There's a lot of enthusiastic people voting for Trump. But he starts at this disadvantage with a lot of people on the independent side because they're not following the debate that close. They're not following the elections that closely. They see what the mainstream media puts out about him. They kind of have a bias against him going in. So what Trump really needed to do, which I'd say he overall did pretty effectively. I'll talk about that more a little bit later. Is he needed to come off good. The bar was set very low for him. All he needed to do was come out good. It was a good jab when he hit her hard on NAFTA. Overall, I'd say the first 30 minutes were definitely where Trump was strongest. He was a lot more assertive. He was scoring a lot more jabs. There was one point where she was clearly fumbled. She lost her train of thought and started. I forget exactly what Trump said. It might have been after he mentioned that her husband put NAFTA forward after she had tried to defend and said, "Well, it created jobs for both sides." Total bullshit. She had kind of paused and didn't really say much for a few minutes, not for a few minutes, for maybe 10 seconds. So she got put on the back foot. Now the rest of the debate was a lot more neutral, but a lot of people, they'll watch for 30 minutes. And if they're going to vote, they might just use 30 minutes of the debate to decide who to support, unfortunately. So if Trump comes off strong in those first 30 minutes, when people are, they're just started watching it and they're the most focused then, as opposed to in the middle of it or towards the end, that's a pretty good advantage for Trump. When the spotlight is strongest, when the most people are paying attention, he got most of his solid victories in. So, excuse me, parched. So moving on after the economics comment, I'll be very surprised if race doesn't come up again in one of the other debates. Trump is presenting himself as the law and order candidate, talking a lot about the skyrocketing murders in Chicago. Democrats have run the city for decades. Look where it's gotten them. And Clinton is, toting the standard line of, it's white racism, it's bias against black people. Not true. She had tried to say that, black people will be judged more harshly in the criminal justice system. That's not true. The amount of police resources directed towards the black community is completely within proportion to the level of criminality. As the resources directed towards other racial communities, whether it be whites, Hispanics, Asians, whatever, is within proportion to the criminality of those groups. I'm sure you can find racist cops. Of course you can. But there is no evidence for this institutional racism as being the primary problem. And, of course, this is where Trump, I think, could have scored some points. He could have pointed out, these biggest problems are in Democrat-run cities. So, if it's white racism, well, it might be Democrat racism. Who'd have thought? Excuse me. Who'd have thought the party of the Ku Klux Klan might be still racist? Just a thought. They tried dragging birtherism out, but honestly, fucking nobody cares about birtherism. It's a stupid fucking issue. Trump did pretty good here. He held his own. He pointed out that it was the Clinton campaign who first started this ridiculous nonsense over the birth certificate. Now, Trump was a birther, sort of, kind of. He wanted to see Obama's birth certificate in 2011. He was one of many people. I don't recall him really standing out as someone who was leading the charge. And, Obama is not running for a third term. So they're trying to push this birtherism as a way to show that, he's really, really racist. On the racism accusation, they try pointing out that, Trump was, while working for his father in the early 70s, they were sued for discrimination at one point. It was settled out of court, so there is absolutely no legal, from like a legal standpoint, there's nothing, being held over Trump's head other than just this accusation. Trump did an okay job defending himself, but he could have done a lot better. He could have pointed out that a golf club. Damn, I should have wrote this down. He had helped desegregate a golf club, I believe, in the early 70s when this that kind of shit was still pretty common, to get Jewish people and blacks into a golf club that up to that point had been exclusively white. He could have brought that up to kind of, counter it and turn it around. He didn't. He was pretty defensive. Overall, I think the attempt to paint Trump down as a racist was not nearly as effective as they could have done. Certainly not for lack of trying. Trump did, very well-advised strategy of pointing out that she had said, loosely had described some of the criminality in the black community as the product of super predators. Now, that's not really something I've ever really cared about. If you see the recording of Clinton making the super predators comment, see the whole thing, she's not calling black people super predators. That's just not true. So that's never been something I've really encouraged people to say. It's a shitty tactic. It's kind of disingenuous. Saying that Clinton was calling black people super predators is the same as, and saying she's racist because of it is the same as saying that, Trump is racist because he pointed out that illegal immigrants tend to murder people. It's true. They both had an element of truth to it. So some people are happy pointing that out. It's a good strategy, but not something I'd say is particularly ethical or fair. I'm kind of backtracking a little bit here. Did anyone else? I'm going to try to find out if this was happen to anyone else. When Trump pointed out that the interest rates being kept down at zero by the Federal Reserve to help Obama have a good last 6 months in the White House as he's preparing to leave. And he had mentioned that when Obama leaves, they're going to let them skyrocket, and then the bubble that our economy is currently in. Excuse me. That the bubble that our country is currently in would pop. I don't know if that happened to anyone else. He was going to mention that, and then my feed cut. I was watching it on the Trump. I was watching the whole stream on the Trump website. I don't think they would have tried to sign up or agreed to stream with a news agency that was going to be fucking shilling that hard. But maybe I'm wrong. It could have just been my connection. I mean, while I couldn't get the stream, I was opening up other tabs and going to websites, and my connection was fine. I didn't have any trouble, so I don't know if it's on my end or if other people had this problem. I'll try to find out a little bit later. What else? They kind of got into more of the hacking stuff. Now, this whole nonsense over, Russia and Putin, the grand wizard of the alt-right, that Putin guy. That they're behind all the hacks the DNC has had. Even if it's true, it's totally a distraction from what is in the emails. This is something, again, Trump could have gone a lot harder on Clinton on. He could have talked more about the Taco Bowl engagement. He could have, brought out some of the other lewd jokes that the Democratic that the DNC tells behind closed doors while lecturing to everybody else about how horribly racist and privileged they are. See, that was definitely a pattern that I had noticed about this first debate. After the 30-minute mark, Trump gets a lot more defensive, and he's explaining. He's taking a while to explain things. He's not being that concise. Clinton, on the other hand, a lot more measured, generally speaking, but also not taking as many jabs. So, she's not losing points and not really gaining points. Neither is Trump. Overall, I'd say it was kind of a net neutral. I don't see either candidate moving the needle significantly into their direction. It's a good thing I didn't take that bet with a friend of mine to see whether or not Clinton would have collapsed. I would have lost $10. She did hold out fine. I don't know if it's going to hold out, if that's going to continue for her. Campaigning is going to really fucking drain her. I think she's very unwell from what we've seen in the past. I don't know if they just shot her up with a shit ton of drugs just to help her fight through the pain and get through this debate. Trump, however, totally fine. Some people are, weirding out that he sniffed, or he, was sniffing his nose a lot. Complete horseshit. I don't know. Probably a CTR troll trying to stir shit. Send up a smokescreen. I would say overall the debate, it was a lot of soft issues. I don't see, the three issues of this election are immigration, foreign policy, and immigration, foreign policy, and trade. Fuck, I'm an idiot. Yeah, immigration, foreign policy, trade. Those are the three issues of this election. Nobody cares about taxes this time around. That is not what's on people's minds. We'll talk about taxes later. We've got bigger problems. Namely, we don't have borders. We don't know what the fuck we're doing in Syria. We broke the ceasefire for no fucking reason. And we are in such a tremendous amount of debt while countries, take advantage of a, quote unquote free trade system. Free trade's nice, but at the very least, every side needs to be open to free trade. You can't have one country like ours saying, yeah, anyone can sell their products here. Don't worry about it. and then we try to sell our products in their country, and then they slap tariffs and take protectionist strategies with them. That's I don't know for how much longer that's really gonna fly with the people. Before I wrap this up, what else did I want to cover? Oh yeah, the Iraq War support. Total, this was obviously a strategy they had planned ahead of time. Clinton is the one who supported the Iraq War. It is not Trump. They knew that this is a massive weakness in the Dragon Clinton's armor. So I guess their idea was that they were going to try to deflect it ahead of time by getting Trump to be the one that, oh, you're the one who supported the Iraq War. It is the most ridiculous and unsubstantiated statement easily of the entire debate. Trump was never in favor of the Iraq War, and he did a very good job explaining it. There was an interview we did on the Howard Stern show. It was the first time, I'm under the impression it is the first time in a public function Trump had been asked a question about the Iraq War, and he responded with, "Yeah, I suppose it's okay. I'm not so sure." Something to that effect. He was not advocating for it. He did not support it. And very soon into 2003 and 2004, he was one of the biggest advocates against it before it became the politically smart thing to do. He was against the Iraq War when it was not good for public images. So yeah, that was just a total, very. I wouldn't say predictable, because I personally did not think they would try to paint Trump as the one who supported the Iraq War. But I guess because it's such a weakness, such an obvious weakness, that's really hurting her with a lot of people on the left and the right, but especially on the left, and millennials especially. Her support for the Iraq War, it's just kind of hanging over her head that she voted for it, and of course Libya. So yeah, this was definitely the soft debate. We'll see, in the next the next two debates, if they're going to start ramping up the questions and ramping up the topics. They will almost certainly talk about immigration. Trump had tried to mention it as often as he can, when it was appropriate, but there was no time segment for this debate that was dedicated to it. That is certainly going to come up. That's also when I think the race 2.0, racism 2.0 is going to make its other reappearance. Because I think it was Stefan Molyneux who said it best. The great intellectual challenge of our age is being able to say the truth without being called a racist. It's the only charge against Trump that kind of works, but it's a diminishing tactic. It is not persuading people nearly as effectively as the label used to. And it's the last page in their book, so I would expect the next debate they'll really try to hit the racism bullshit home, and I suppose the sexism as well, and all the other isms. Clinton had kind of fired off all her cylinders. Trump did not talk about Benghazi. He had mentioned the emails, but he didn't go that far into it. He talked about, again, kind of talked about Libya and Syria. Didn't really cover her record of lying, lying explicitly on many occasions. Clinton kind of fired off all her cylinders, but Trump still has a lot of ammunition left to go. So I think the next debate, Clinton will be a lot more, she'll be a lot less creative in her insults, creative in the points she brings up against Trump. She'll start repeating herself. She'll start falling back on the same old lines. I can't think of any criticisms against Trump that the establishment has tried to make that they didn't make tonight. They talked about the tax returns. They talked about birtherisms. They try to talk about sexism towards the end. Um, Everything they could have said, they said tonight. But Trump still has more topics to bring up against Hillary Clinton. So yeah, I don't think this is gonna push the needle in either camp's direction particularly strongly. I think the current trend we're seeing, where Trump is steadily rising in the battleground states and Clinton is steadily falling behind, I think that will continue. But yeah, Clinton did a lot better than I expected she would. She held her own. She held the line, but didn't gain ground. And Trump didn't lose the momentum. So that's just what I had to. That's just what I had to say. Hope you guys have a good night. Take care.